Hi everyone, welcome to ASE Astrology. I'm your host Blue Yasmin, and this video is about the solar eclipse that is occurring on the 12th of August, and it is happening in Leo, and this is the second solar eclipse that's happening between the axis of the two opposite signs of Leo and Aquarius. So we did have a solar eclipse in February in Aquarius, and it's being followed by the one that's coming up that's going to be happening in Leo, and then it's going to happen again in Aquarius in February, followed by another final showdown by Leo, with the sun being in Leo at the time. So we're going to have the solar eclipse in Leo. So this is really the energy that has been kind of compressed for quite some time, and it's going to act as a catalyst and bring out this energy in a very eventful way in a certain area in your life. It is very much a cosmic accelerator that is been waiting to be, coming to the surface from the subconscious to the conscious. And this is very much about the Leo and Aquarius energy. So where is it happening in your chart? And when it comes to the solar eclipses, it's an energy that continues for at least 6 to about 2 years. And the reason why is because the axis that the two opposite signs are on, and the solar eclipse that happens to go from one to another, really continues usually up to about 2 years. So you're going to be seeing somewhere in your life, depending on your rising sign, where are these changes? Where is the catalyst going to be taking place? You're going to feel it. It is extremely potent. So I'm going to go through all rising signs, and I'm also going to be talking about what a solar eclipse is, why we have a solar eclipse, how does it happen, where it's happening, when it's happening, and all those goodies. So if you do, you're kind of like not really into science, because I'm a bit of a sciencey girl, you can skip over to your particular rising sign, and I'm going to try and remember to stamp time them. And so before I do continue, do subscribe and join this community that I wish to grow into a community of ascension. I have been doing quite a few astrology work with the community. I've just finished a workshop in central London in Covent Garden, and it was a workshop about the solar eclipse, and I've got another one coming up that is going to be about the lunar eclipse. And then I have in September a seminar in central London about the Venus bittersweet, which I did do a video of, and it is going to be about 4 hours long, and it's going to go much more deeper than the video itself. It's going to be deliciously divine, and it really is about the Venus retrograde that's taking place in early October. And this Venus retrograde is very, very unique. It is the last of its kind. Now, what I mean by that, because I do know that all retrogrades are different, and I do consider that the Venus retrograde is probably the most potent and most profound of all retrogrades when it comes to all the other planets. And it is somewhere where, when Venus retrogrades, that she asks us to go very, very deep, because she goes to the underworld. And this particular retrograde is happening in Scorpio for the last time. And what I mean by that is that when Venus makes her beautiful, perfect 5-pointed star, from our point of view, in the space of 8 years, where she does 5 retrogrades, she makes this 5-pointed star, and it's always in a particular sign, where we have the points of the stars, where the retrogrades happens in Gemini, happens in Leo, Capricorn, Aries, and Scorpio. And it has been doing this for many, 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 many years. And this is the last journey that Venus will be retrograding in Scorpio itself. It will not be doing a retrograde in Scorpio in your lifetime, our children's lifetime, our children's lifetime, and on and on. It is extremely unique and it's very, very profound because it is going to the truest underworld, which is Scorpio, that is ruled by Pluto. So I will be talking about the retrograde, what Venus is asking from us, and we're just going into layers and layers and layers. It's going to be absolutely delicious. We're going to have wine, we're going to have Venetian foods, and I'm so excited about it. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm really planning to do more workshops and seminars as the year ends and going into the new year. If you are interested, if you're ever passing London, if you're ever passing central London, pay us a visit. Go onto my website at ascastrology.com. It's not Googleized yet. What I mean is that you can't just put it into Google and I turn up. I will be sorting that out. But you can put it into the browser, say on the Safari browser or Yahoo browser, and type it in, ascastrology.com, or you can just click on the link below. If you want any information about any future seminars or workshop, let me know, drop me a note, get in touch with me, email me on blue@ascastrology.com, and I'll be very happy to hear from you. Okay, so enough of the plugging, enough of the adverts. Let's get down to the solar eclipse that is happening on the 12th of August. Now, this is a really, really special eclipse because it is happening in Leo. And Leo is ruled by the sun. And of course, the solar eclipse is all about the sun and of course the moon. But before we go into the rising signs and what it means for you, let's look at what actually is a solar eclipse. Why do we have a solar eclipse? How does it happen? And when it's happening and where it's happening. Let's dive in. So, the solar eclipse is really how we look at the solar eclipse in its episodes is that when we have a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse, or sometimes we have a lunar eclipse first and then a solar eclipse, it always happens in pairs and it's always 2 weeks apart from each other. So if you have the solar eclipse, 2 weeks later you're going to have the lunar eclipse. And we call this period an eclipse season. An eclipse season happens twice a year. And so what is the meaning of the word eclipse? I'm just going to take a sip of water. Lovely, a bit of hydration. So the meaning of eclipse comes from the Greek word eclipses. And it does mean to cessation, it means to stop or to come to an end, failure or loss or abandonment. And indeed we can kind of relate that to the solar eclipse where the light has abandoned us and the light has come to an end or has failed to shine. And that is of course because the moon is in exact conjunction to the sun. Now you can imagine that back in the day when people didn't understand the eclipses, they didn't, understand it or were able to predict the eclipses, how they would be affected by the eclipse and how they would see the eclipse and view the eclipse. Because in your lifetime, if you stay in one area in your lifetime, say if you grew up in a little village in the middle of nowhere back in the day, and I'm talking about centuries ago before we had electricity, living in cities and so on, where really all we had was a land, the sea and the sky and the simple foods that Mother Nature offered us. And, if you stayed in that one area, you would very likely only see just one total eclipse in your lifetime. And that is because the total eclipse or any kind of eclipses really don't stay, it doesn't happen in one spot. It migrates due to, you know, when it's happening, and, you know, with the world rotating and the moon doing its orbit and so on. And so if you can imagine that, you know, if you imagine a village full of people where suddenly, you know, you have the crickets and the birds that are chirping, and you know, I don't know if you've ever been to a tropical country, or somewhere very warm where you have crickets, where what do? Do they, I don't know, buzz at the background, and then you have the birds, and it's quite loud. But when the solar eclipse happens, what usually happens is that all the animals go dead quiet. And so you can imagine for our ancestors, you know, with the solar eclipse, just before it happens, everything goes really, really quiet. And then it's followed by a kind of chill in the air because the temperature drops. And then the hue changes, and they're thinking, what on earth is going on? And then they look up and they see this dark, jet black shadow. Not even a shadow, it's that disc, that very dark disc that looks like it's eating away at the sun. And so you can imagine that our ancestors probably thought that something terrible is happening to their own life force, which is what the sun is. And that they think that this demon or monster or dragon is going to eat away at the sun and leave them in total darkness and then death to follow. So there are some amazing stories about how people in the past, our ancestors, used to be affected and influenced, and their kind of reaction to the solar eclipse. And there's a wonderful story in China where there's a people in a village where the solar eclipse, total eclipse is happening, and they go out with their pots and pans and they're banging away and screaming at this monster and screaming, saying, leave our life force alone, we need our sun god. And they're shouting away and trying to scare away this black dark monster or dragon, or however they saw it, demon. And they would see that it would be totally covering the sun. And in fear, they're screaming and shouting more and banging more. And then they're seeing that the deep, dark disc is moving away, and they feel this is working. We're really frightening away this monster, and they're shouting harder and louder and banging on the pans louder. Can you imagine the mayhem and the noise in the village? And then the monster disappears, and the sun is saved, and everyone is joyous and feel like they've won this war against the demon, and that the sun god is very pleased. And there's another lovely story about in the west coast of Africa, where there were two tribes that were in war with each other. And while they were in actual battle, physical battle, the total eclipse was occurring, and they thought that the sun god was very angry with them, so they put down their weapons and were friends ever since, because they realized that as soon as they put down their weapons, the sun was saved, and the angry god, the dark disk, which they didn't know at the time was the moon, because, you know, the moon you see at nighttime and you don't see it at daytime. So this dark disk was a mysterious force of nature. And, you know, when this force of dark nature was leaving the sun, they realized that what they were doing is what the god wanted. The sun god wanted them to live in peace, and they lived in peace ever since. And I can bet you any money that that solar eclipse was in Libra, of course, all about peace and harmony. So in astronomy itself, the science astronomy, they look at this astronomical event, the solar eclipse, as when one body passes over or in between the viewer. It moves in between the viewer and another object, so it blocks the object that the viewer is looking at straight ahead. Or it is when one celestial body passes into a shadow of another. And in astronomy, as well as astrology, because astronomy did derive from astrology, of course, and they still, astronomy, the science astronomy, uses a lot of the language that astrologers established in the observation of the planets, and you know, with astronomy deriving from astrology, they still use a lot of the language and the symbols of the 5 planets and the sun as well. But when there is this perfect alignment between the moon and the sun, we call this phenomenon a syzygy. I love that word, syzygy, and it means to come together. It means to yoke together, or a union, or one unit, 2 bodies come together as one unit. I do love the word syzygy. It's actually one of my favorite words. So when it comes to the solar eclipse, it is seen as a cosmic synchronicity. And the word synchronicity was coined by the modern godfather of psychology, Carl Jung. And he really viewed synchronicity as something that was just more than mere coincidence. He really kind of looked at synchronicity as 2 or more events that have come together, that the likelihood of these events coming together was so slim that there would be a meaning behind it. And he really saw that the one part of the synchronicity is really the human consciousness being very much attracting the outside event, where these 2, the consciousness and event, coming together with a sense of purpose and meaning. So he viewed synchronicity as something that was definitely very divine. But in the science world, in the world of astronomy as we know it today, they do look at the cosmic synchronicity of the solar eclipse as a chance or a cosmic coincidence. But then there are others that look at the solar eclipse as some kind of cosmic magic. Or is it like some kind of cosmic divine, or part of a sacred geometry, a divine order perhaps? And I'll let you decide on that. But in my point of view, even if it is a coincidence, and it could be a coincidence, the sheer fact that it is so powerful in its sense of how these events that have got to take place and synchronize, it's so immensely just mind-blowing that the coincidence in itself is magic. And that's the way I look at it anyway. So how does the solar eclipse happen? And when it comes to the moon, you know, there's a few things that have got to happen when we have a solar eclipse. But when it comes to the moon, it's really quite strange how when we look at the sky, the moon seems to be the same size as the sun, or around about the same size as the sun. And when you have the total eclipse, it does, conjunct, and then from our point of view, it looks exactly the same size as the sun, which is really, really kind of, you feel like that's kind of impossible, because the moon is so tiny in comparison to the sun, and it's even tiny in comparison to our Earth. So why is it that when we look at the sky, and especially when we're looking at a solar eclipse with special solar eclipse glasses, do not ever look at the solar eclipse when it is happening, because it can damage your eyes. Until you get to the moment of its totality, you can have a look with your bare eyes, but only for a moment. But we'll get into that a bit later. But it is really quite puzzling. But the reason behind that is because the sun itself is 400 times wider than the moon. And this really boils down to Albert Einstein's E = mc² square. It's about distance, time, space. It's about the mass and the distance and the time. And really it is about the ratio between the sun and the moon, the size and the distance. So the sun is 400 times wider than the moon, but the moon is 400 times closer to the Earth than it is to the sun. So these two ratios, when you put them together from our point of view, the moon looks like the perfect size of the sun. So it is a kind of optical illusion. But there are three events that have got to take place for this one huge, spectacular event to take place. So the first thing that's got to happen is that the moon has got to sit directly between the moon and the sun. And when we get that, we call that the new moon, which happens once a year. Now, the moon itself has two kinds of orbits. It has this orbit that it goes around the Earth, which we call the sidereal orbit. It's a sidereal month. And it does that rotation, that orbit, should I say, in around about 27.3 days, to be precise, actually. And that is round about a month. And in fact, the word month comes from it means the moon. And so, back in the day when, our ancestors didn't have the calendars that we have today, such as a Western calendar that is a Gregorian calendar that has been kind of bastardized quite a lot, so it doesn't follow exactly the lunar cycle or the solar cycle. But, the original calendars were strictly followed by the lunar orbit around the Earth, or the lunar cycle, its phases, or the solar calendar. But the Gregorian calendar is somewhat different from that, but it still sticks to the 12 months and the 12 zodiac signs. So we have the sidereal month, that is when the moon orbits around the Earth, and then there is another orbit that it does, and this is what we call the synodic month of the moon. This is when the Earth itself rotates around the sun. So therefore, as the moon is rotating around the Earth, so does she, Mother Moon, rotates around the sun as well. And that takes about 29.5 days. And this is where it's really about the phases of the moon, is the orbit around the sun. And so the phases of the moon is really how the sun lights up the moon, and the moon, as it orbits, lights up, it waxes and wanes. And so we have round about a 29-day cycle where it goes from new moon to full moon. And we'll have that every month. Every now and again, we may have 2 new moons or 2 full moons. But in general, we'll have 1 new moon once a month and 1 full moon once a month. Now, when the moon is in the middle, in between the Earth and the sun, that's when a new moon occurs. When a full moon occurs, it's when the moon is behind the Earth and the Earth is facing in front of the sun. So you have a lineup of the sun, the Earth, and then behind the Earth we have the moon. And that's when we get the full moon. So we have the new moon once a month. So you may think that, well, why do we not get a solar eclipse once a month? That is because 2 other things have got to take place. The other thing that's got to take place is that we've got to have what we call a perigee. Now, when it comes to the orbit of the moon around the Earth, it orbits in a circle, but it's not a perfect circle. It's what we call an ellipse. The circle kind of slightly stretches out, and it's not fixed in a way that, the distance between the moon and the Earth can change in its orbit, where at some points it is further away from the Earth and at other points it's closer to the Earth. But when we have that lunar cycle where it's going around the Earth, we like to measure at that actual orbit, that particular monthly orbit, at what point during that orbit is it the furthest away from the Earth, and at what point is it the closest to the Earth. When it is the closest, we call that the perigee, and when it is the furthest, we call that the apogee. To have a solar eclipse, we've got to be at perigee or very close to the perigee, i.e. during its cycle, during its orbit around the Earth, it has got to be the closest point to the Earth, or at least close to the closest point to the Earth. So that's the two things that got to happen. Now we get the perigee and apogee once a month, generally, and there are 14 days apart, a bit like the cycle where you get the new moon and the 14 days later you have the full moon. So new moon, it waxes, builds up, and then it gets to the full moon, then it wanes, and then you get the new moon. With the apogee and perigee, you also have that kind of 14 days apart, where you would have the perigee and then 14 days later you'll have an apogee. So sometimes again you may get a second perigee or apogee in a month, but generally we do get one perigee and one apogee during 1 month. So what is the third thing that's got to happen? The third thing that's got to happen is that we've got to have an intersection point between the orbit of the moon and the earth, and that invisible orbit line between the orbit of the earth going around the sun. So let me explain that a bit more clearly. So you have the orbit of the moon going around the earth. So imagine that there is this kind of circular motion, this invisible line that the orbit follows. That line, when that line meets the invisible line of the earth going around the sun, when these two lines intersect and meet, that is when we have mathematical points, the nodes. So the nodes aren't solid objects in the cosmos. They are mathematical points where the Earth's orbit around the sun and the moon's orbit around the earth intersects. And there we have the gateways of the solar eclipse. And I do like to consider the nodes as the two gates that open at twice a year to open the gates to the solar eclipse. They are the gatekeepers of the solar eclipse. And this does happen twice a year. And it is when we intersect with, when the two orbits do intersect, that the nodes do open up to the solar eclipse. Now, there is a north node and the south node. And if you're really into astrology and you know quite a bit about astrology, you know that the nodes are very, very important points in your astrological chart, and particularly when there is a solar eclipse, because the nodes will be very close to the solar eclipse where it's happening in your chart. You will see the nodes very close, and this will kind of give a certain nature to the eclipse astrologically. So they are very, very potent, and they're very, very meaningful. So as an astrologer, you take note of the nodes while the eclipse is happening. What node is happening at the time? Is it a north node? Is it a south node? Now, when there is a north node, we do know that that's when the moon is over the equator moving towards the northern hemisphere. That's when you get a north node. When you get a south node, it is when the moon is below the equator moving towards the southern hemisphere. So that's the third thing that happens. So you have the new moon, click, you have the perigee, click, and then the third click, you have the node, and there we have the opening, the gates opening to the solar eclipse. Now, there are different kinds of eclipses. We are having a total eclipse this year. Not that everybody will see the solar eclipse, but we do have a total eclipse this year. And the total eclipse is where the moon completely covers the sun. And what we get is we just have the rays of the sunlight exuding out, of its parameters. And we call that the corona. The other kind of eclipse that we have is what we call an annular eclipse. And this is when the moon isn't quite at perigee. And so it's not the closest point to the Earth while it's orbiting. And so the moon doesn't quite fit perfectly around the sun. You have the outer rim of the sun showing, and we call this the ring of fire. And then we have another kind of eclipse, which we call the partial solar eclipse, and this is when we're definitely not in where the nodes don't quite meet. So it's like the nodes kind of semi-open the gates, but the gates, they refuse to open the gates fully. So we get a partial solar eclipse. The other one is that we have a hybrid solar eclipse where one part of the world at the same time sees a total eclipse and the other part of the world sees a partial eclipse. This is one of the most rarest kinds of eclipses. It's about 3% of all eclipses are hybrid solar eclipses. And the reason for that is quite complicated to actually explain, but it's got to do with the speed of the orbit of the moon and the curvature of the earth. But it is very rare. Now, what's always got to happen when we do have any kind of solar eclipse is that it has always got to be the new moon. What brings it out of the totality of the eclipse is whether it is at perigee or not, or whether the nodes are completely going to open up that gate. So it hasn't quite touched on that precise mathematical equation of the two intersecting orbits of the Earth around the Sun and the Moon around the Earth. Okay, so when it comes to the eclipses, only a small area of the world will see the eclipse, whether it's partial, whether it's total, because it follows a certain path, and the path is always different every year. And this slim path is what we call the path of totality. So when we have, say, a total eclipse, the moon creates a very, very small, narrow shadow of itself. And it follows during its orbit, and as the Earth is spinning, it follows a certain path. And this concentrated shadow is where this is where the sky gets very dark and the stars come out. And this shadow is what we call the umbra. The umbra is the concentrated shadow, and it really only spans around about 50 to 150 miles. And then it will move across certain areas of the Earth according to, the timing and the spinning of the Earth and so on and so forth. And then you have the outer shadow of the moon, which we call the penumbra. This spreads out a lot more. So the penumbra is where people will see the partial eclipse. So when you're watching an eclipse, you really have to be careful. Do not ever watch a solar eclipse happen with your naked eye. It can damage your eyes for life. You have to wear special glasses called solar eclipse glasses, and they are very special glasses. They're about 1,000 times stronger than the normal, strongest fashion sunglasses. Don't ever wear sunglasses. Don't ever look at through a camera trying to take pictures of the solar eclipse without using special camera solar eclipse lenses. And when you do buy these glasses, do make sure that you check the international safety standard, which is ISO 12312-2. There's a lot of fakes that are around, so do make sure that you look out for the standard. This is when you can really look up at the sky and watch it happening right in front of your eyes. And then you do have another technique that you can use if you don't have the glasses. It's a very simple technique. It's called the pinhole viewer, and all you have to do is get a non-transparent, like a piece of cardboard. You put a hole in it with a pencil or a pen, and make sure that it's a beautifully circular and clean. And then you have a piece of paper that is probably about white or light grey or light blue, and you allow the sunlight to go through, and you can watch so beautifully, so perfectly, the lunar eclipse happening. So it's kind of looking at it on a television, if you like. And that's the way I viewed the solar eclipse back in 1999 in London. And it is really, really fun, and you do get a very clear view. Now, when you can look up is when there is that totality, and only when there is that totality. So if you are wearing those special solar eclipse glasses, or you're using the pinhole view, what you look for is you look for the diamond ring, because you know now that it's closing in. and it is a speck of light that shines, and it's such a spectacular view, because it looks like this dark ring with a diamond right on top. And then it disappears, and what's left is what we call Bailey's beads, which looks like little beads of light on one side of the moon. And then you know that's when it's closing in. And so once that disappears, you know it's safe to take your glasses off or look away from the pinhole, and you can look straight up to the totality of the eclipse. Then once you see the first speck of that Bailey beads, it is time to look away and get back to wearing your glasses, or go back to looking at the view through the pinhole viewer. So do look after yourself, do look after your eyes when you are viewing the total eclipse. But when it comes to the total eclipse, it's not going to be a total eclipse everywhere. There is going to be only certain areas in the world where you see its totality. So it is happening on August the 12th, different times in different areas of the world. Where you're going to get the totality is it's going to be in Greenland, Iceland, Atlantic Ocean, if you're lucky enough to be on this ship cruise in the right area of the Atlantic Ocean, what fun that would be. Northern Spain, northeast Portugal, and the Arctic, if you're, one of the 2 people in the Arctic. A couple of scientists probably there at the same time, that would be such a wonderful view, watching it from the Arctic. But I doubt if there's going to be many people watching it from the Arctic. But the main place that it is really taking place, where you get its greatest totality and its most intense totality and its duration, is the west coast of Iceland. And that's going to be lasting for a whole 2 hours and 1 minute, the total duration. But the max totality of the totality itself will last around about 2 minutes and exactly 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So this is where a lot of the solar eclipse chasers will be going, to Iceland. And it is being said, because it is going to be on the 12th, the peak of the Pisces meteor shower, which happens every year, and on the 12th of August it peaks. It is being said that not only are we going to see the stars when we have the total eclipse in Iceland, you will also perhaps get to see a beautiful show of the meteorite shower. And also, perhaps, if we're lucky, or if they are lucky, whoever is viewing it in Iceland, you will probably get to see the auroras borealis. I mean, I am so jealous. What a view that must be, how magical that might feel. And I really hope whoever decides to go to Iceland to watch the total eclipse, that you enjoy it to the fullest. And I really do hope that you get to see the meteorite shower as well as the auroras borealis. Okay, so but in other parts of the world, not all parts of the world, but there are some parts of the world that you will see the eclipse, but it won't be in its totality. For instance, in London, we will see 90%, or should I say precisely 91.4% of the eclipse. And not only in London and in the UK, but also in Ireland and France and Italy and North Africa, we get to see it on its partiality of it. But 90% or just over is absolutely spectacular in itself. Now, because it is partial, we will be seeing that partiality of the total eclipse. You always need to keep the solar eclipse glasses on, and you always need to keep your eye on the pinhole viewer. Never look at it, because it's not going to be in its totality. In London, it begins at 6:17 p.m. The maximum point of its partiality will be at 7:13 p.m. and it finishes at 7 minutes past 8 p.m. So the total duration in London is going to be 1 hour, 15 minutes. I was going to make a separate slide for this, but you can see that the kind of heading of it is London. But this is from my actual workshop that I did a few days ago on the solar eclipse, which was absolutely fabulous, by the way. So do enjoy the solar eclipse. Let's hope for bright skies. I'll be fasting on the day and then celebrating after the solar eclipse of the day after. So everybody has different ways of, some people do rituals. There are places in the world, certain cultures that do fast. It's very common that certain people in India fast, and I'm used to fasting anyway, so I do a lot. I've done 2 days fast, 3 days fast, 5 days fast, just drinking water, and I usually eat once a day anyway, so I'm very used to fasting. Do not fast on the day of the solar eclipse if you're not used to it, and if you do fast, do make sure that you get professional guidance. But other than that, there are so many ways that you can celebrate the solar eclipse, and you can get the family together and enjoy everything that's Leo. Celebrate, have joy, have the family, have children, eat everything that is orange and yellow: papaya, mangoes, oranges, trout, and red kidney beans and lentils, and get the red candles out, the yellow candles out, and wear something gold. The sun is gold itself, and it is the it affiliates with the metal gold. Golden ornaments, golden jewelry, wear a little golden something for you to wear. And this is really a day to celebrate the elements as well. It's lovely to have on an altar or on your day of celebration, the table where you have a bit of earth, some salt, or a plant pot, or some flowers like sunflowers or calendulas, lovely bright orange yellow flowers. And you can also celebrate with having a ritual, and being intentional. And people have different ways of having rituals. Some people like to have it privately. They like their rituals to be very introspective. Some people like to have rituals with groups and dance and sing and play, and really a ritual is really just being aware of the day and being thankful and being intentional. And it could be just having your favorite people around you and celebrating the day. That in itself is a ritual. So whatever you do on the day, do enjoy, and let's hope for clear skies. Now we're going to be going into astrology and the solar eclipse and what it means. What is a solar eclipse astrologically? Why is it so potent? And also what it means for the collective as well as for you as an individual. You need to get your chart out, look at your rising sign and see where your Leo is, because that is where the solar eclipse is going to be taking place in your area, in your life. Look at what house it is in, and that is the house or the area of your life that is going to be activated. So let's go into solar eclipse and astrology now. So solar eclipses are what we can see as cosmic accelerators. It is as if time has been compressed, and situations and events and happenings that have compressed in time, and the solar eclipse literally just kind of releases that compressed time, and it kind of quantum leaps into an accelerated timeline. It kind of jumps into the future. And I don't mean that you're going to look at your clock and suddenly it's going to go faster when the solar eclipse happens. But what I mean by that is that if you look at your past life, I mean, if we look at big events, say for instance, when I was young, back in the 1960s, I remember, looking out for the rag man, because you could hear him from afar, and I'd open the door and I'd see the rag man with his horse and his cart, and he's shouting, any old iron, any old iron. And that is the way we used to recycle. We used to wait for the rag man to come with his horse and cart and give out all of the things that we needed to recycle, especially things that were metal. And but now how we recycle is a different story altogether. And when you look back in time and how things have changed, how things have been accelerated in time, that's what I mean. I remember back in the day when my mum used to phone, you know, her homeland, and she'd be talking to her brother, my uncle, and she'd be shouting down the phone, hello, how have you been? And she'd be really, I mean, they'd both be shouting, and she'll still be saying, can you hear me? And then the next minute, we've got our phone in front of us, FaceTiming and swiping, and I'm saying hi to my uncle, how are you? And then he's still shouting back at me, and I'm saying to him, you know, it's not the 1970s anymore, you don't have to shout and scream. And and we can see each other while we're talking, and we could literally whisper to each other. How times change so quickly. And this is what I mean about acceleration. It's not that the time itself is accelerated, although it is, but it's how consciousness, our subconsciousness and consciousness accelerates. And really it is the consciousness that is accelerating. And so this brings in new chapters, and you will find collectively and individually external events come up, and they change the storyline. It brings in new chapters, unexpected events. It brings in changes that are pivotal, that will change the story forever and remodel things. It is really about powerful new beginnings. And really the events of solar eclipse and lunar eclipse is the most important events that take place yearly, the most important events that take place yearly for the astrological calendar. And the reason why they are the most important yearly events is because astrologers use the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse as time techniques. And what I mean by that is that we use time techniques such as secondary progression or solar arcs, including perfection, as well as the solar eclipses. We use these techniques to see what's coming ahead or what we're moving towards. And so the solar eclipses are very, very important. For instance, if I'm doing a yearly forecast or a 3-yearly forecast for a client, I will always have a look at where the solar eclipses are taking place in which area in their life by looking at their natal chart, and also looking at progressive charts and looking at even solar charts and the transitions to see how the solar eclipse is going to be playing out in their lives, in which area in their life. So they are very, very important events, and they are also very important because they include the most important celestial bodies of all celestial bodies. It is the sun and it is the moon. They are the brightest things in the light, and the sun itself is a true light. We consider them to be the two luminaries. They illuminate the light, and the sun is the true light, and the moon is the diffused light. The moon is actually dark, so if the sun is not reflecting its light, it is dark. And so the moon carries the sunlight and it is diffused. And so the sun itself represents our consciousness. We are the light. It is the light that is awake, and it is the light that we can see with. It is what is conscious within us. And it is the light that externalizes from us. It is representing our core identity, the sense of I, the sense of self. It is our ego. And if you think about the light, the sunlight, it's a daylight. So we can see where we're going in the daylight. So it can really aid us in being purposeful. We can see what we're doing. We have that drive. We know where we're, what actions to take because the light is there. Everything is seen, so everything is purposeful. So the sun is very much our purpose and our drive. It's our true purpose, our authentic self, our authentic purpose, our true drive. And the moon is the subconscious. It's a diffused light. So it is not our core identity. It is our emotional core. The moon represents our emotions. The moon is about the instincts and our intuition. It symbolizes the mother and everything that the mother gives to us. And it is our core needs. It is our private self, our memory, our emotions, and it's all the things that we can't see. So you can imagine that during the night, there is no light apart from the moonlight. And even then, sometimes we don't get the whole moonlight. So what happens in the night is that we become instinctive because we have to begin to use our intuition to move around in the night, to sense where we're going, to sense our purpose through the night. And so this is where we become primal and instinctive. We don't rely so much on our eyes anymore. We rely on our primal first senses ever used, and that is our nose and our ears. So we begin to use our primal senses. And so this is very much about the moon symbolizing our inner instincts and our inner self and our private self, because this is a night. You can't be seen, and it's very difficult to see you. So this is your private self. It is your memories, your roots and your ancestors. It's your memories and your emotions, and the emotions are linked to memory. We are nothing but a moving vessel and memory with emotions. Really, if anything, that's really what we are, just a walking vessel or a moving vessel, a living vessel with memories and emotions. Because without these memories, we cannot have emotions, and without emotions, we cannot have root to the emotions, and without emotions, you cannot be purposeful. You can't do the sun, excuse me, you can't do the sun without the moon. You cannot do the sun, you cannot be purposeful, you cannot have a drive, and you cannot make decisions because the sun is decisive, it's intentional, and you cannot make decisions without emotion. So if you imagine that you've lost your memory and you've gone back to your home, where, obviously you don't remember where you live, so someone's taken to you, to your home, and everything feels strange. Everything that you was attached to in your home, what we are attached to with our possessions, there's emotions attached to our possessions. From anything from a TV to an ornament to your bed, to pictures on the walls of your family. Suddenly you feel detached from all of those and you don't recognize it. So you don't have any emotions. If anything, you're just confused because that memory has been cut off, and therefore the emotions have been cut off. If you look at your husband and you've lost your memory, you don't recognize him. There's no feeling of emotion or perhaps even love because the memories of your husband has been cut off. And so the decisiveness and the purpose disappears. And so really what the moon is the undercurrent of the consciousness. It is the subconsciousness. What lies underneath the consciousness and floats and waves under like a current under the consciousness. And so the sun is the seen and the moon is the unseen. The sun is how, but the moon is the why. And really, I view the eclipse season as a lunar season. Yes, it is a solar eclipse that we're seeing, but it's the action of the moon that really turns the sun into a catalyst and activates. And so what happens is that with our subconscious, whether it's collective or individual, within our subconscious is what lies the seeds and the emotions that lay dormant and are ignored or are not seen. And these could be our deepest fears. They could be our deepest hopes. They could be our soul's journey when the soul or the spirit has chosen our body for a certain purpose and a certain intention, but somewhere along the line that we've forgotten. And our dreams and our hopes that lay well within deep in the subconsciousness. And I know that even if you don't go towards that, the spirit choosing you before we are born, we all know that we do feel something, that we feel there's something that, you know, I feel like I'm built for something, but I don't know what. Well, that lives right in the deep subconsciousness of who you are. And they lay dormant, they lay as seeds. And these are our needs and emotions that really need to come to light for us to live through our authentic journey and be our authentic selves. And so these emotions and needs that lay within the subconscious lay very deep, and they are like seeds. And so what happens when the moon is in conjunction to the sun during the solar eclipse is that what lies deep comes to the surface, and what are in the dreams and the hopes become active, and what lay as seeds are released, and what lies dormant becomes awakened. And it will be determined by what sign the solar eclipse is in and where it is happening in your chart, in the area of your life. That is where the consciousness is going to be activated by what the subconscious releases. And this is where the catalyst will take place in the area in your life. And so the subconscious comes to fruition and weaves into this individual consciousness, or the collective consciousness, or should we say both the individual and the collective consciousness. So, excuse me. So, I'm going to have a drink of water. Lots of talking. So, when it comes to the individual consciousness, yes, we do have an individual consciousness, but the individual consciousness is connected. We're all connected into one consciousness, into a collective consciousness. And we can sometimes see this as at play when we see mass of people following a certain idea or a way to live, or how we function. Or sometimes we see the mass, say, living in fear or wanting a certain kind of dream or hope. And so the solar eclipse really does affect the collective consciousness. And so here we will see worldly events take place. Now the solar eclipse, because it does include the sun is of authority itself. You know, the sun is the very center of everything, and everything revolves around the sun, and it is the most powerful in our existence, the most powerful entity in our existence. So the sun is about authority and power and leadership. It's about rulership and drama. It's passionate. It's full of heat and fieriness. It erupts. And it is the core. So what we see when it comes to the collective consciousness, we see worldly events that take place, that in a timeline things have compressed, and the solar eclipse releases an expression of this compression of timeline of events that have been taking place. And here we will see some dramas going on between in this world arena of politics, with world leaders and people in the monarchy, kings and queens. It's a very, very common thing to see during a solar eclipse. It may not happen on the day, but you'll see within that span of 6 to 2 years where it's happening in the axis between two opposite signs, you will see definitely dramatic drama and passion being released in the world, in this world arena of politics and leadership. And so, here we see, we've got Donald Trump, for instance. Now, he's a Leo rising, and we do know that he's coming up for election, and he's looking for continuing his leadership. And he's a Leo rising, so it is taking place in his first house. So this is the house of leadership. It is the house of I and ego and presenting and going forward. So perhaps we will see another reign of Trump leading and continuing his leadership. Who knows? I don't know if you've heard of Elon Musk with his SpaceX rocket smashing into the, exploding onto the moon. And that's very interesting to see. You know, Elon Musk is really kind of living out his Chiron. And no matter what you think of him and what views you have of him, on his individual journey, he's really practicing his Chiron. His Chiron is in the 9th house in Aries. And Aries is very much about the pioneering and exploring. And of course, the 9th house is going to expand that, because the 9th house is about traveling afar and exploration and experiencing. And, you know, Jupiter being in Leo is expanding that, and trining to his Aries is expanding that. But his ascendant is, if I'm right, I think it's the moon that could be squaring with his Chiron. Now, his Chiron in Aries means that his journey through the trauma of how he soothes his journey. And with Chiron, you have to serve others and heal others through your own pain of the trauma of Chiron. And you can see that he does that by serving himself as someone who is a pioneer, exploring deep space. And, you know, whether you agree with him or not, his individual journey is very much being fulfilled. But the solar eclipse coming up and the explosion happening with the destruction of one of his SpaceX rockets, you know, his Leo is in the 2nd house. And that is of self-worth and value and his possessions. And we do say that if you are Cancer rising, as he is, that is very likely that you could be burning a hole in your pocket due to overextending your finances and, you know, really exaggerating with your value and trying to prove your self-worth, as the light and the spotlight is in the 2nd house. And here we have that explosion happening with one of his possessions and what he values. And here he may be in a situation where he's questioning his self-value, and where he has been performing his worth of value literally on stage, you know, along with Trump actually. So it's very interesting to see what's happening in his chart. So here we are going to see a lot of drama in the political arena, as well as perhaps with the royal family. You know, we have Prince William, who was born on a solar eclipse in 1989, and his wife, Prince Middleton, was born on a lunar eclipse. I can go on about the royal family and the eclipses, but I'm not going to have time today. Perhaps I'll do a little subject about the solar eclipse and the royal family. It is absolutely fascinating. So much happens with the royal family when it comes to the solar eclipse, especially when it comes to the solar eclipse in Leo. Now, it is about heat and fiery and eruption, especially because we have the other side of the axis of where we have the eclipses happening in Aquarius, and Aquarius itself is about shock and explosion and eruption. Of course, we have Leo, which is fiery, and it is the core, and we have Mother Earth brimming from the core, and you know, the heat that she's experiencing at the moment, the fires that have been spreading, the devastating earthquakes that have been happening, and so much loss of life. And Mother Earth is being very much activated within her own core. We have to remember that Earth herself has that consciousness and the subconsciousness, and she herself is alive. She is our true mother. She is the original one that gives birth to everything in life, including us. And so whenever she goes through changes, so do we. She is our original DNA. So we will be seeing more of that, unfortunately, because of this Leo and Aquarius eclipse occurring. So now we're going to go into the individual astrology that I know that you've been waiting for. What does the solar eclipse mean for you? Now, when we're looking at the solar eclipse, we need to know where it's taking place in. So we know it's taking place in Leo. Now, with Leo, the ruling planet is the sun. So this is double bubble for this solar eclipse because it is the sun that is the solar eclipse, but also it is in Leo, which it rules. So this is particularly potent. So we need to look at what does the sun symbolize. And it really does symbolize power, because it is the most powerful in our existence, the most powerful subject, the most powerful energy, the most powerful entity in our existence. We don't have anything that is more powerful that we can witness. And so, you know, when we look at power, if we look at that, what lies under that umbrella of power, we have leadership, we have authority, the father, you know, the sun symbolizes and is the archetype of the father. It is the ruler. And, you know, of course, the rulers, we see the kings and queens, the presidents, the prime ministers. It is royal. It sits at the crown. It sits at the crown. It sits at the throne with the crown, should I say, at the center of the solar system that everything orbits around. We are constantly bowing towards and orbiting around the sun. And you know, so being about authority and leadership, it means confidence and being bold. It wants to be recognized because it is a sun. It demands to be recognized. It demands to be seen. It is purposeful, it's determined, and it demands honor. It is the most honorable of all honors. And so here we do see authority where they demand honor, where they demand that they lead and they demand recognition. And so that's why in the wider world we do see authority play up. We see a lot of drama with leaders and kings and queens. And it has to do with creation. Of course, the sun is the original creator, because without the sun, there is no life force, there is no creation, there is no life, there is no existence on earth without the sun. So it is a true creator. And of course, the creator, the first thing that it will do and that it's known for is that it generates, it creates, it is creative. So it generates, and generation is, of course, you know, one generation after another, where we're talking about children, so it symbolizes children. We as humans generate children, animals generate their children, plants generate their children. This life is about generation. Without generation we do not exist. So it symbolizes the children, and children symbolizes our inner child, play and creativity again, and joy and enthusiasm and passion and motivation. You know, children inspire, the light inspires. So the sun is very much about passion and creativity and your inner child and play and fun. It is the core of the solar system, and there is nothing like the star, like our star. In our solar system, we have the asteroids, we have plenty of planets and asteroids and whatnot, but there is only one star, there is only one sun. And so it is self, and it identifies with self. And so it is very unique and individual, because there is nothing else like the sun. Even if you know, with the universe that we have explored, with this deep exploration that we have done for generations, we still haven't seen anything like our sun and her solar system. And so the sun is about uniqueness. It is about your individuality, your identity, your authentication, because the sun is the true creator and the true power and the true light. So it's about your true self, your authentic self. It represents your identity, it represents your ego. And it is also the center of our universe, the solar system. So it is the center of who you are and your ego, your pride. It is the light, the true light. There is no other true light. in our existence that gives us this pure light. Every other light is really either the stars in the sky or the diffuse light of the moon or artificial light that we create ourselves. So it is a true light, it's a true energy, it is the true vitality. So it's a vitality within you, the force within you. It's the fire in your belly that you want to express. Light expresses, and it is your vitality, your drive. It is about getting attention. So where your eclipse is where you're going to be put under the spotlight, given attention or receiving attention. And it is the sun that is the spotlight. So it creates this stage where the sun demands to be seen under the spotlight and radiate and exudes its power. And that is what it symbolizes within us. So wherever the sun is in your chart is where it is the center of who you really are, where you want to really authenticate yourself in your life and where your true purpose is. This is the center of your life. It may not be your ruling planet, it may not be your dominant planet, but the sun will always be that sun, your true purpose, your true identity in that area, in your life that exudes the rest of who you are. So, now that we've talked a little bit about the sun, we need to know a little bit more about Leo. Leo is a fixed sign, you know, with fixed signs we have Leo Aquarius, which is the opposite of the axis that the solar eclipse is happening. So this solar eclipse has a very fixed nature. It knows what it wants to do, it knows what it wants, and it will get what it wants. Fixed signs are probably the most they know what they want. They don't mess about. They have more clarity in their life than any other signs because they are fixed in nature. They know what they want and they get what they want, and they'll do what they need to do to get what they want. And they're stubborn. They're very fixed in nature, and they can be very stubborn and hard to change. And it is a fire sign, so fire signs like Aries and Sagittarius and Leo, these signs, they just want to spread and initiate and develop and create, and it's full of passion. So this is the nature of this solar eclipse. It is of fire in nature, excuse me, and it is fixed in nature. And Leo is ruled by the ruling planet. And the solar eclipse is happening at 20 degrees. And it's happening at the south node. So when you look on your chart, don't only just look at where your Leo is, but look at where the Leo 20 degrees is in your chart. Because I use the Placidus system. So I'll be going through the rising signs and houses with the solar eclipse using whole houses because it just makes it simpler. But really I use the Placidus system when I'm looking at individual charts, and what that will do sometimes is that it can bring signs outside of and spread itself outside of just one house. It could spread to 2 houses, sometimes even 3 houses. So that 20 degree in Leo, if you're looking at Placidus and you use the Placidus system, look at where your 20 degree is. Because say, for instance, I'm doing whole houses here. So if you are a Leo rising, your Leo is going to happen in the first house. But if you use a Placidus system, your 20 degree Leo could be happening, say, in the 12th house. So this will give a very different nature. It's not to say that you're not going to feel the first house, but the root of the catalyst is going to be in the 12th house if your 20 degrees sits in the 12th house. So take a very careful look to see where your 20 degree Leo is in. So the solar eclipse, it is about focusing on Leo and its respective houses that it's going to be in on your chart. And it really does mean this new chapter relating to your identity within that area in your life. Re-identifying yourself, bringing in a new identity that is more authentic, that lines up with your true self. It is about how you are personally going to be expressing your own light, and you are going to be more creative and more passionate. How you use that creativity and passion really does depend on where it is in your life, what conversation the solar eclipse is happening in areas of your natal chart, and with the transitions that's happening, and also with your progressive chart as well. It can go very, very deep, but of course we're keeping this simple, and we're going to go just looking at the rising signs and its relationship to the house that the solar eclipse is happening in. So it does light up that particular area in your life where you demand to be seen. And Leo, it does rule the heart. It is the center, the epicenter of everything. And it is the expression of confidence. And, during this time, you may experience romance. You may want to play more and have fun. You may have more children around you, whether it's your own children or other children. That children may come up somewhere. And, this is really a time to bring out your inner child. And it's not about being immature. It's about connecting with your inner child and learning how to just let go and be, play and have fun. And it is about having the courage to do so, and the courage to realign more with your authentic self, which means you have to let go of certain things. It's about being in that spotlight. So you may not be a person that likes to have the light on you, but you've got to be courageous and bold enough and allow to, be under that spotlight, soak in that light. And it does bring attention to a part of your chart where you're holding back. So where the solar eclipse is happening in your chart, this is probably a place where you've been deep down inside and back of your head have been thinking about doing a certain thing or a certain project or being a certain way, or, just an area in your life where you've really just been putting at the back burner, not giving it much thought because you think, oh, well, I can't do that, or I don't have time for that, or no, it's just, how, why, when, it's just something that has been so put beneath that you could almost just forget about it, or it's just been right at the back of the mind and you haven't been giving attention. But when the solar eclipse happens in that area in your life, it will bring those things to surface, and you're going to be feeling very, very intentional about these things. They're going to come up on the surface from the middle of nowhere, and suddenly you feel like you are motivated to really activate these things that have been lying at the back burner. And so it does bring in this kind of expression of focusing and really pushes you to take ownership, and making things more visible that has been lying in the shadows. And this does include the South Node. That's going to be part of this Leo solar eclipse. So it brings in this kind of karmic gathering, this karmic undertone, where, it's time to clear a space to bring in new things to happen. It's about closure or releasing things that just are not working for you. And the thing is that can be very difficult because we have patterns in our life that we emotionally attach ourselves to. Behaviors, possessions, people, places and things. And we don't want to let them go because they feel so familiar. And so it takes that Leo courage and boldness to let those things go, to allow these new changes to come to its full fruition and what it really intentionally wants to do. You need to give it that space. So outdated patterns just run its course. It's hit a brick wall, and those things that you have had attachment to, and your old identity and ego attachments, it's time to let them go. And, sometimes it is so difficult because this is how we seek safety. We fulfill what we think, what we need, and how we find ways of, fulfilling ourselves and seeking validation. but we cannot always live in that same space with those same patterns, otherwise we never evolve. So this South Node is asking you to let go and make new way with a boldness and a movement of going forward with passion, stripping away for a new authentic version of yourself. So when we, again, looking at the solar eclipse, we do look at what could be happening during the solar eclipse. And one of the things that's happening in transition, one of the things that is happening is that Jupiter is in Leo at the moment. So Leo, Jupiter in Leo, this is going to expand everything that is Leo. It's going to make everything about Leo bigger. So it's going to shine brighter. It's going to be more courageous. It's going to be more confidence. It's just going to amplify everything that is Leo, and everything of that is the sun. Now, it's not in tight conjunction to the solar eclipse, but it is going to be in Leo for a year. And so it's going to play a strong influence over the eclipse. So with Jupiter, Jupiter is the protector. So it can buffer and soften and protect you from this destabilizing effect that the solar eclipse can happen, because it's so high frequency and it's so potent. It can feel quite destabilizing. So the Jupiter will help to soften the landing of the solar eclipse. It has these kind of protective characteristic to it, and it will bestow opportunities, because Jupiter is all about gifting and giving and being generous. So you will see opportunities and an expansion of all these things that are Leo, and optimism. But here you have to be really careful, because Jupiter can overdo with optimism. So it can make you over optimistic. It can make you overconfident, over bold, over daring, and over thinking about I and the self ego. So here you have to be quite aware of that Jupiter energy expanding. Use that expansion, but make sure you don't overdo. Leo can be too prideful. Leo can be too overconfident, and Leo can get too over dramatic. And Jupiter will add to that. So do take care about this energy in Jupiter in Leo, but make use of its bestowousness and its opportunities, of course. Now, having said that Leo is 20 degrees, the solar eclipse is happening at 20 degrees in Leo, the people or the individuals that are going to feel it most are going to be those that have anything in their chart, planets or points, that are 20 degrees or within the orb of 20 degrees, anything from 17 to 23 degrees. I usually work within a 3-degree orb, but some astrologers go way out into the 10-degree orb. So some astrologers will say, well, anything from 10 to 29 degrees is going to be very effective. But I work within a 3-degree orb. So, anyone between that 17 to 23 degrees is going to be extremely potent, and it's going to be having a very, very in-depth conversation, the solar eclipse is, with whatever it is aspecting within that 20-degree orb. And whatever is going on in that area in your life where your solar eclipse is in your chart is going to be very much involved in that conversation it's having with the point or the planet that is also close to the 20-degree orb. So have a close look at your chart to see if the 20-degree Leo is having any kind of conversation with other parts of your chart that is close to that 20-degree orb. If you're born between the 8th and the 13th of any month, you are going to have your own natal sun close to the 20 degrees, especially if you're born around about the 11th or the 12th or maybe the 13th. You'll probably be that 20 degree, if not 19 20 or 21 degree. And so your sun is going to be having a really potent relationship with the solar eclipse. So look at where your natal sun is and look at where the solar eclipse is, because even if it's quincunxing and it's not doing what most people recognize, either a square or a trine or a sextile or even a conjunction. Oh my God, if you've got a conjunction, pow, wow, that is going to be really powerful. But you know, it will be making some kind of aspect, so do look out for that. The other individuals that are going to really feel the potency of the solar eclipse are those who have a fixed rising sign. So if you are a rising sign Scorpio, or rising sign Taurus, or a rising sign Aquarius, or a rising sign Leo, which are all fixed signs, you are really going to feel this very strongly, because no matter which sign of the fixed signs is rising, your solar eclipse is going to be happening on an angular house. And the angular houses are considered to be the most powerful houses because they are what causes pivotal changes. You know, this is the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. And this is where the angular lines are for the first house, the ascendant, the fourth house, which is the IC, and the seventh house, which is the descendant, and the 10th house, which is the MC. And so these are very important, because if you look at the areas of the houses where you look at the chart, you've got the moving sky where you see the zodiac going round and around your house system. Your house system is you. It is you. But it's also the earth. And so when you look at the angular lines, the angular houses, this represents the pivotal changes of Mother Earth. This represents where she does her pivotal changes within her natural cycle that we call the seasons, her season cycles. So with the first house, where we have the ascendant, the sun rising, the first house is literally the house of the rising sun. And so this house is ruled by Aries, and Aries is the first day of Aries is the first day of spring. It marks the equinox. And so here Mother Earth pivots within her cycle, and it becomes the first day of spring, and so she changes in her behavior. And then you have where you have Cancer ruling the fourth house, which is the angular house, the IC point, where the first house of Cancer marks the first day of summer, which is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. And again here Mother Nature pivots and changes her behavior. And then you have where on the seventh house, where you have the angular house, the descendant, where the sun sets. But here it's ruled by Libra, and the first day of Libra is the equinox, the autumn equinox. And it is where the daylight is 12:12 and on all sides of the world. And here Mother Earth again pivots and changes her behavior within her cycle. And it is then after that where we have the 10th house, which is ruled by Capricorn, and the first day of Capricorn marks the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, and thereafter the days get longer. And here we have the winter solstice, and Mother Earth yet again clicks into another pivotal change where she changes her behavior within her cycle. So if you reflect that on us, because we are Earth, we belong to Earth, that is where we have pivotal changes in our lives. They are the most powerful houses. And so if you are a fixed sign, your solar eclipse will land in one of these houses. So shall we start? Now, I'm gonna try and remember to timestamp this so you can jump into your particular rising sign. I'm going to start off with the fixed signs, which is going to be Leo, Aquarius, and Scorpio, and Taurus. And then I'm going to go on to the signs that are going to trine with your rising sign. And so these are going to make a trine with your solar eclipse, these signs. And then I'm going to go to what sextiles the solar eclipse in your chart. And then we're going to go into what semi-sextiles and also what quintiles. So let's start off with the fixed signs. We've got Leo. Now Leo is, if you are a Leo rising, this is going to be putting the light into your first house. It's going to activate your first house, and that first house is about your identity. It is how you step out into the world. It is the rising house. It is the sun. Sorry, it is the house of the rising sun, and it is where the sun rises. So imagine that this is the house where you step out into the world, where you identify to the world firsthand, your first impression, and the first impression that people have of you. It is how you mask yourself or armor yourself as you step out to the world. It is not where people see your private self or get to know you. It is where they just see your mask. It is how you use your instincts as you step out into the world. It's your branding. And this is also where you can start your new projects and your personal goals. Now, it is going to put the spotlight into the area of your individuality. Because this is the house that's ruled by Aries. It is the house of I, self, and the ego, and your self-image. And so there may be this kind of really strong urge to change your identity, your image. But certainly you are going to want to bring out something more authentic about yourself. This is very much about bringing an authentic version of yourself to the world. This is where you are really invited to dream bigger. This is Leo rising. Now, there is a belief that all Leos love to be in the limelight. They love that attention. They love to be under that spotlight. However, Leo risers, they are quite private people and they don't really enjoy the limelight. Maybe males more than female risers, Leo risers do. But generally they do not enjoy the limelight. They can be quite shy, but not necessarily shy. They do have a very strong inner confidence, but they just don't like to be in the limelight. If you consider the Leo sun being the male lion on the top of the hill, roaring, saying, I'm the king. But the Leo rising is more like the female lion, where she just wants to get on with her the things that are important in life. She's got much more important things to do than to just, get attention and being on top of the mountain where the sun is shining on her and she's just being groomed under this beautiful light. She has more important things to do. And then when she has done what she has done, she goes into her private limelight, which is Scorpio in the 4th house, and she enjoys her privacy. And so when it comes to Leo risers, you better get ready, because the limelight is on you whether you like it or not. You can do nothing about it. The sun is shining brightly on you, and no matter where you try and hide, it's going to follow you and you're going to get attention. And you may be even hungry for attention. You may be even hungry for that light now. And you may be thinking, what's going on? Because this isn't me. I just want to be this person that wants to be more extrovert on a certain thing that I'm passionate about, or something that I want to be creative about. This is a time when there is opportunity to lead or to present. You are going to be appearing as a leader. People are going to see you as a leader, as someone that can be very dominant in something, someone that can present something or people. Now this works on the axis of Aquarius, so a lot of this is going to be leaking into where your Aquarius is in your chart, because it is the opposite. So remember, this solar eclipse is happening on both ends. So this is really about how you bring that authentic self to others, that are the collective, that are people who are your allies or your comrades or your tribe. And here you have to find the balance of self and self-identity and authentication and leading, but not so much leading, but presenting yourself as a leader, but not leading with your own rules and authority, presenting yourself to the collective, which are your tribe of people. And this is where you're going to suddenly feel very new. You're going to feel like something that was undercurrent, that loosely you may have thought of, has come to fruition, and it's there in your face under the spotlight, and there's nothing that you can do about it but to follow that energy. So this energy, make sure that you do manage it, because it's going to be very intense energy and it can be quite draining. And because you're going to be very, very busy, and very confident, and you're going to really exuberate, you may forget that you are perhaps feeling drained. Be mindful of how you expand your physical and your emotional vitality. And, do focus on what you want to truly serve. Be authentic with your personal goals. And, just ensure that, you are confident but not overconfident. You're going to be brimming with creativity and passion. But the goal here really is to keep things simple, because your intuition is taking you, and trust your intuition. Trust your instinct. Trust the fire in your belly. Don't think that you have to do everything all at once. It is really taking things in simplicity. But do enjoy the eclipse. Love you all, Leo risers. Happy solar eclipse. So now we're moving to the other side of the axis, Aquarius rising. And you Aquarius rising must have been feeling it very strongly from around about February. And of course we all have, but you being an Aquarius rising, this would have been very much a starting point for you from February or just before February. Now this for you activates your 7th house. And of course the 7th house is about relationships, it's about other people, it's about partnership. It could be romantic partnership, it could be marriage, it could be business partnership. And it is about collaboration. And also here you see property and wealth. But here, this is where you're going to be really attracting people that kind of mirror you. They're looking for something that you're looking for, and they want something that you want. And it's going to be, where as a group, you're going to be creative and self-expressing together, and sharing self-expression and sharing something that truly feels authentic. The light is going to shine in the 7th house, and this is where there is going to be confidence within relationships. But it's also where certain things might come up in partnerships that do not work anymore. And so, there could be some drama going on when it comes to romantic relationships or business partnerships, and, dynamics within relationships. It really is going to bring on a kind of turning point with a one-to-one dynamics. And, sharing the spotlight and balancing individual vision is really what this is about. Committing to other people, but committing to something very authentic and true. And committing to something that you are passionate about and what you can be creative in. This is, remember, about where you are working on the axis between self and others, Leo and Aquarius. So this is going to be leaking into the house of where the Leo eclipse is happening, and the 7th house. So what am I saying? Your rising sign and the 7th house. And so here you are going to see where you may have this need to detach your sense of self from the group. And that can be allowed, because sometimes Aquarius needs that detachment, but the commitment has to be there in the 7th house. And you have to be very creative between self and your self-identity, and that balance between self-identity and the collective and others, and relating to others. So you are going to be sharing this spotlight with others. So you'll be experiencing shift regarding who leads and what partnerships are genuinely supportive, and how to assert authority with close relationships. And this is very much designed to help you align yourself with authentic partnership. Do be careful not to take any impulsive actions. This is a house of commitment and agreement and contract signing. So while the eclipse is happening a few days before and after, it is advisable not to do or write any contracts or sign any contracts or commit to anything during this period, because it can be very destabilizing. It's very high frequency. So do take care of that. But do enjoy the solar eclipse. Love you all, Aquarius rising. So now for the other fixed sign, which is Scorpio. Now for Scorpio rising, this is happening in the 10th house. And the 10th house is about being seen in public. It is the highest point of the sun. And so you are going to be seen by the public. And this is the house of your career and your reputation and really how you serve the public or your public purpose, or something that you've mastered in or you spend a lot of time doing, because it's the house of time. It is the house of your status and your reputation. And so here, Scorpio rises, you're going to be entering perhaps something to do with something professional or something that you want to master in or you have been mastering in, has a turning point, and it's what is important outside of really your personal self. And here, for being that kind of being a fixed sign, and that fixed sign being in the 10th house, that's going to be squaring with your rising sign. So you're going to feel it's not going to feel comfortable, it's not going to feel natural, and you may feel some kind of confliction or some kind of obstacle. And of course, being a Scorpio, being a fixed sign, you can be quite stubborn and find it difficult to go through changes, but this is begging you to go through changes. It is begging you to make space for new opportunities, because here you may see sudden opportunities arise. And you may view the world differently from where you are standing up in the sky, and how the world views you, and your authority, and the professional changes or trajectories in career, where you can have career breakthroughs or new creative projects in your career or your workplace. Not so much your workplace, but it is very much, it's not so much about your job, it is really about your career and your reputation. And this is where you're going to be recognized as being the leader, or people are going to look at you saying, I like what I see in that person and what they're doing. I can see that they are creative, they've got leadership quality, and they're standing out as quite a strong individual. And this can bring you the potential for perhaps changing where you are with your work opportunities coming, perhaps even promotion. This really pushes you to align with your public work and time for your deepest passions, what you can master in. And you may be perhaps mastered in something, and you may feel, well, I'm kind of done with that. I now want to master into this, and I want to be very creative, and I'm suddenly getting this passion about it. Or something, again, that has been undercurrent that you could be passionate about and creative in, when it comes to your reputation, when it comes to the public eye or your career, and it comes to the surface, and you begin to practice that with a sense of creativity and passion. And so there will be ideas that will be coming your way, and you may change the way that you communicate as an authoritative figure, or even the way the authorities communicate to you. But do balance. Here we have a lot of energy with the public, and then it sinks into your private life. What you want to do is make sure you have that balance where you're shifting from public to private. The shifts in public life that will require you to create a very secure, nurturing foundation behind the scenes to support your rise. And so ensure that your home is a place where you can nurture and feel safe, and continue to feed your needs that helps you to feel secure and comfortable. And so do enjoy the solar eclipse. I wish you all the very best. Love you all, Scorpio risers. And so now we come to the next fixed sign, which is Taurus, and this activates your 4th house, which is of course your home. It's your domesticated life. It is the 4th house that is ruled by Cancer. It is the house of the mother, the family, the home, even your homeland, your country. And it is where you see dynamics of family. It's your inner child, your memories, your ancestral roots. And of course, it is your emotions as well, your private aspect of your life. And so here we see that this is going to be shining the light in your domestic part of your life, your home, your private life. And so this is where you may find that there's some redefining going on. So the foundation comes to focus, pushing towards redefining perhaps between work and life, because this links into the 10th house, the opposite sign of your solar eclipse, which is the opposite sign of the 10th house of your career. And so it's asking you to make sure that there is a balance between work and career. But here you may feel an urge to pull back from the public eye. You may want to or feel more secure within your home environment. And so, there could be this increased public visibility, but you might want to just focus on creating a secure, comforting home environment. And so this could be where you might want to upgrade your living space, processing deep-rooted emotional patterns. This is where family dynamics might turn up, where family might see you as the leader or someone to present the family about some kind of family dynamics. It could be where the family is looking towards you, where the spotlight is under you, where they're looking for you to heal certain family patterns or family emotions, because it's the house of healing. Perhaps they're looking for you to ground something that has been unsteady or destabling within the family or domestic environment, where they're looking for you to ground and root and stabilize and heal as a leader or a presenter of the family. And it is about really making your home comfortable. So you may really be like wanting to either leave your old home and move into a new home. It could be, expect, developments like even real estate where, you could be moving home, or if not, home renovations or expanding your household, because we have Jupiter here. So Jupiter's going to be perhaps wanting to expand your space, and you may be feeling quite optimistic in your place, in your space, and you may be wanting to, spend some of your wealth, being Leo, on your house to upgrade your house, make it more comfortable, make it more authentic, that lines up with who you are. You could be loving your house and then you're thinking, I don't feel like it aligns with me anymore. I feel like I'm more into Chanel than leather, or I'm more into having linen rather than polyester, and and you look around the colors and it doesn't seem to be aligning with you anymore, and you might have the urge to redecorate, even if not home renovate. But it is about upgrading, and even if you can't afford to even decorate or put a little paint on, it is something that you're just going to feel an urge to move things around or to clear things out. This is where you want the sun to shine. Open the curtains, open the windows, let the sun in, light the candles, allow the fire element to bring in this kind of feeling of connection to this Leo eclipse. This is where these new developments are really going to align with what you feel comfortable and secure with. So have that confidence to change your personal environment, and ensure that it is a sanctuary, but it's an authentic sanctuary for yourself. So enjoy the solar eclipse. I love you all, Taurus rising. Happy solar eclipse for the 12th. So now we go on to the fire signs. Now the fire signs, which of course is Leo, But we've done Leo as a fixed sign. We have Aries and Sagittarius, and these being the fire signs. Aries rising. So for you, Aries rising, you're a fire sign. So your rising sign is going to be trining with where the solar eclipse is going to be happening in your chart. So this is going to activate your 5th house, which is oh so wonderful because it's all about fun and leisure and hobbies and romance, casual romance and affairs and children and creativity, and it's just fun. So here Aries naturally aligns with this this beautiful shift that's happening. This is where you're going to be involved in creative projects, perhaps even romantic affairs. But it is a time to play. It's a time to let go and get in touch with your inner child. There's going to be this inner spark that just wants to shine, and you being bold anyway. This is really about stepping towards that authentic joy and passion and being very bold about it. And, you know, there is going to be this kind of creative awakening and this kind of sudden urge to start new, passionate, creative, or even artistic ventures, or even adventures, because we are talking about Aries here, and Aries love adventures. And, you know, you may be on projects, but you might find that they finish really fast, faster than you expected. But here you want to clear out anything that just feels a little bit old and dead. You know, where, you know, things are just not, you know, you're not getting the fun out of this anymore, or you're not feeling that project anymore. So it's really about just clearing things out and bringing in something that's going to increase that joy. You know, anything to do with leisure, anything to do with your spare time, hobbies. And you may feel like you want to drop certain hobbies because you got tired of them and bring in new hobbies. Or you may want to expand on the hobbies and expand on your leisurely time. Again, we're talking about Jupiter here. That's going to make you feel very optimistic, very wanting you to expand in projects and your leisure time and your fun time. And so, you know, this is really about truly celebrating you. This is the house of celebration. The Sun rules the 5th house, so it is about the house of celebration. So this is the time to say yes, yes, yes to pleasure and hobbies and leisure. And this is where you can really feed your soul and be very, very purposeful, because this is a house of purpose as well. It's ruled by the Sun. So be very purposeful in what you're doing and what you're having fun in. Don't downplay it. Like really, really go to that fun side of you. So, I mean, what can I say? This is going to be such fun for you. Enjoy, and of course you are going to enjoy. And, you know, this is the first house. This is where the sun is shining and sparking up everything that is about celebration and fun. So enjoy, Aries rising. Love you all, Aries rising. And so now we go on to Sagittarius rising, which is a fire sign. And so this is going to be trining to the solar eclipse in your chart. And it is going to activate the 9th house. And the 9th house is where Jupiter rules. The Sun loves the 9th house as well. And so Jupiter being in Leo, this is going to be expanding everything about the 9th house. And the 9th house is about higher learning. It's about expanding in knowledge, expanding experience, and just expanding and travel and broadening your horizons, learning new philosophies, perhaps a time of new faith. You know, this is also a house of the higher law. This is where you see the power of attorney, laws, higher laws changing for rights of people, or give more freedom to people. This is a house of personal freedom. So here you're really going to, personal freedom is going to be very, very highlighted. The sun is shining on the 9th house. You are under the spotlight here, and so are what is attributed in the 9th house. So naturally aligning harmoniously to the nature of Sagittarius, it pushes you to rethink your core beliefs. And it is a time of enlightenment. So, you know, you can find a more authentic self through experiencing the world, broadening your horizon, traveling afar, experiencing different cultures and different societies, and learning and learning and learning and, increasing your knowledge. But this is the academy of life rather than the academy of schooling and accreditation. It is the academy of life. It's really about experiencing and expanding. And so here, being ruled by Jupiter, this is where you can boost your natural optimism. It is where you can pursue new adventures and have a passion for further knowledge and traveling. This is where you probably can walk away from ideologies that really aren't working for you anymore. They've become rigid and these kind of ways of perhaps faiths and ideologies that just no longer serve you, and it will make way of something new for you. And here we see publishing, higher laws, like I said, and this can come into the spotlight. This could be where perhaps you could be asked to be power of attorney, or this is perhaps where you've been waiting for such a long time for, where perhaps you've been waiting for a divorce to be finalized, and how assets are divided, and you've been waiting a very, very long time for that, and suddenly things can come to a nice, neat ending here for you. It could be where you've been waiting for a property, or selling a property, or buying a property, and you've been waiting for such a long time and it's been complicated, but things will come into fruition during the time of the solar eclipse and the axis. Now, this is going towards the opposite sign of Gemini, which is the 9th house. So you will feel the pull and throw between community and neighborhood and locality to traveling afar. And, here we do see publishing. Again, Gemini is very much about writing, and the 9th house is very much about publishing. And so lots of really exciting things happening for Sagittarius rising. But here, being Sagittarius, and of course being the house of Jupiter, you can be impulsive, can be over optimistic. So take care of of any over impulsiveness and over optimism. And because there could be certain paperworks and perhaps signing certain things, do take care. Read the small print, read very carefully, and best not to sign anything during the solar eclipse, or very close or after the solar eclipse. And really think honestly about purposeful expansion, because this is really about opening up to new experience, and this will align and wants to align with your core value and your authentic self. So be very thoughtful and purposeful about this wonderful journey of expansion that's going to take place for you in the next, from now, starting probably from February right up to probably end of next year. So enjoy your journeys. Love your Sagittarius rising. So now we get to the air signs. So we start off with Gemini rising. Now Gemini rising, you are going to feel that axis between the 9th house and the 3rd house, but it does activate the 3rd house, which is the house of communication. It is the house of your neighborhood, what's immediately outside of your environment. It's to do with local travel, cars and buses and trains and commuting, and, really about your local environment. It's to do with early learning, foundation learning, starting new subjects from foundation level. So this could be perhaps starting a new course, starting a new perhaps academical subject. You could be starting a new project when it comes to writing, or picking up information and putting it together in a project. It is perhaps maybe you want to learn a new language. It's a wonderful time to learn a new language. It is about also your siblings and your peer groups. And so, it does bring this massive shake-up of how you process and share your creative ideas. And these ideas will urge you to break free from people-pleasing and confidently owning your own voice, and speaking with authenticity and expressing your messages with authenticity. It's an urge to really let go of this external validation and to speak authentic truth without performing for an audience. And so do expect really beneficial connections happening at this time. The sun is shining brightly on your third house of where you have connections, and so you may have new connections, beneficial connections. This is sextiling, so this is where you take opportunity. It's not harmoniously smooth moving like the trines, but a sextile brings opportunity, and if you take those opportunities, it becomes very, very beneficial for you. And so these are real page, not just page turners, these are chapter turners. And so this is going to bring huge changes for how you communicate with the community and making new connections, new beginnings, especially within your immediate environment, your neighborhood and your community, or even with your daily routines and your relationships with brother and sister or cousins or your peer groups. You may begin a new peer group. You may have certain things coming up between your siblings where communication becomes very pivotal to change dynamics between siblings. So, taking leaps into new horizons, such as going on solar adventures, perhaps around the country or around the towns, will be so beneficial. It's where you're going to gain lots of information that can have a lot of effect on how you communicate in the future. Taking courses, it's a wonderful time to take courses, and launching new projects, starting new projects, but having the attention to finish them. And also, giving attention and refinement and confidence with your talking and writing. You will find this new confidence to talk, perhaps public speaking and writing. You may want to do volunteering with the community or start up projects with the community. Sounds very exciting, Gemini risings. Do enjoy the solar eclipse. Happy solar eclipse. Love you all, Gemini rising. And so now we go into the other air sign, Libra rising. For all you Libra risings, this solar eclipse in Leo is going to be happening in your 11th house, which is of course about tomorrow and the future. It is the house of allies, your tribe. It is the house of networking and long-term goals for manifesting. And it is a house of future dreams. Yes, it is. It's not so much that it is the house of friendship, even though friends are supposed to have your back. But it's the house of people who really understand your goals and are with you and have your back when it comes to your goals. And so it is the house of tomorrow, it's the house of future dreams of manifestation. So it can prompt a release, and also because the light is shining on and giving that spotlight to the 11th house, you may find that old ties, perhaps your tribe that you're sharing your ideas with and your dreams with, perhaps these social ties have become outdated. There may be things that become illuminated where perhaps someone or people in your tribe or your collective community have become to a kind of disagreeable or some kind of misunderstanding between you and a person or the tribe itself, and things can come into light where you may want to rethink who you want to be part of your tribe, or perhaps start afresh and network where you begin to be part of a new kind of collective where allies really do truly understand your dreams and your long-term goals. So it does release draining social ties or outdated dreams while illuminating new authentic collaborations and visions for the future. So expect shake-ups. They'll be unexpected. This is the house of Aquarius. It's ruled by Aquarius. It's ruled by Uranus. So you will have unexpected shake-ups in your networks and your communities. Friends might fade. making space for new aspiring people. This is the house of aspiration. So, you could be having new aspiring people enter your tribe who really do support your true self and ensure that you stick to very much authentic goals. This is the sun solar eclipse in your house. It's powerful, so it's a powerful time for long considered projects or aspirations that may suddenly demand focus or require leadership. So embrace your individuality, because this is the house of Aquarius. It's a house of collective, but it is also the house of individuality. It's where you kind of stand out from your group as well as being part of the collective. So embrace your individuality rather than seeking validation or approval. And of course, it is the house of manifestation. Wonderful time for you to do rituals, if you're into that, mantras, putting intentions to light. This leaks into the 5th house, which is the house of mantra, the house that Leo rules. So this energy of the eclipse leaks into the 5th house. And so it is also about, as you're going through your aspiration and joining new groups, it should be about creativity, fun and passion as well. Sounds absolutely amazing. Do enjoy the solar eclipse. Love you all, Libra rising. So now we go on to Pisces. Pisces quincunx with the solar eclipse, and this is happening in the 6th house of daily routines, the house of the mundane, the everyday. Now, this may sound boring, but it's not, because this is the very bones of how you live your life. So here you may see really major changes in how you manage your daily routines, how you work, how you give service to others, and also how you look after your health and your habits, and even your pets may come to light. This is probably a time where you might get a new pet. It may be that perhaps it could be where you want to buy another pet, but your pets are in the 6th house, because your pets are very much part of your routine. You have to have a certain routine to take care of a pet really well. So the pet is included into the 6th house. So this is where the light shines on your daily routines, your health, service, duty, and pets. And so there is this real urge to reorganize your daily life and to clear out anything that's busy or outdated. And, this is really about making space and a time for you to do something more creative with your daily routine. You want to bring joy with the solar eclipse happening here in Leo. You want to bring joy into your routines. You have this urge to be more creative with your routine. This is probably where you're going to want to take better care of yourself and find creative ways to increase your physical vitality, and then you redefine how you show up in your workplace or your daily schedule. And even in your workplace, you're going to be shining with people that you serve, and you'll be more noticed, and perhaps the daily schedule in your workplace can change up too. But here you may want to also be more creative and put more passion into. You may feel that the daily schedule of your workplace needs to be changed. It could be a change in your workplace. It could be where perhaps you've changed who you are in your workplace. Your identity can change in your workplace as well. You may want to, feel different, look different in your workplace. You may want your workplace environment to feel different and look different. This is where the light is shining, where you serve people, your work, your routine, and your health and your fitness. So here is where you really have to be making some courageous and bold moves, where it's really going to pull you into a place where you are authenticated and you feel like it's really lining up with who you really are. So, not as boring as it sounds, the mundane house. I love the mundane house. And, what would be life without our routines? But this is here where Leo solar eclipse is asking you to be a bit more flamboyant with your daily routines. Bring a bit of sunshine into it. Bring some joy and creativity and passion into it. All you Pisces rising, love you all. Enjoy the solar eclipse. Now for all you Cancer rising, before I go on, I'm going to have a bit of water. Being a water sign, all this talking is drying my throat up, so I need to hydrate a bit. Okay, Cancer rising. So this is going to be shining. The solar eclipse is going to be bringing light into your second house. And it's full of heat. It's hot and it's fiery. And, you know, Cancer rising do have this reputation of being quite frugal with the money because, you know, they need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. So in order to do that, they're very careful with their money. But here with Leo in the second house, Leo in the second house, the solar eclipse is happening. This is going to bring in quite a bit of change here where you may want to start spending money for self-pleasing rather than people-pleasing, which Cancers are very well known to do. But this is where you want to reevaluate your self-worth. This is the house of self-worth, value, self-value. And it is the house of possessions, material. It is the house of stability, sustaining security, and it feeds into the 8th house. So this is where you're going to see this axis between your 8th house and your second house where the solar eclipse is happening, where they're going to be feeding into each other. So you will see resources coming in or resources going out from your resource house of the second house where the solar eclipse is happening into the house of resources. This is where you may want to be looking at debts, but also where you may have the urge to suddenly spend. This is where you may have a real urge to spend for yourself, enjoy, as enjoy Leo, enjoying a bit, being a bit more flamboyant with your money, but it does leave the risk of burning a hole in your pocket. Again, we're talking about Leo, the fire and the heat. So do take care how you spend, but enjoy. Bring focus to self-worth. But this is where you can look at perhaps turning points in your career and reevaluate your personal finance and your personal possessions. And, you know, it is the time to kind of get rid of outdated financial habits or, careers or jobs or emotional attachments to material things that you no longer need. It's time to kind of shed away those outdated patterns to bringing the new, perhaps looking at a new career, looking at a new way of how to sort out your finances, looking at your possessions. Perhaps there are certain possessions that you're emotionally attached to, but it's time to move on and to let them go, to make new of possessions around you that line up with more of your true, authentic self. Excuse me. So navigating this balance between you, what you earn independently and what you share with others is very, very important. You know, these changes that align more closely with your true value and skills is what it wants to do. It wants you to align to your true self-worth. And, you know, do take care when it comes to taking on other people's resources, other people's debts, other people's money issues. This is very much about self and self-reevaluation when it comes to your finance, your career, your self-worth, and your possessions. And it is about finding a new way of being stable and secure. So do enjoy the solar eclipse. All you lovely Cancer rising, love you all. So we now come to Capricorn rising. I need some more water. There's a lot of talking going on. And it is very, very hot here in London today. So I have to keep myself hydrated. So Capricorn rising. For you, Capricorn rising, this activates your 8th house, but also feeding in to your 2nd house. So the light is shining on your 8th house, which is, of course, the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio, ruled by the planet Pluto. It is about intimacy and metamorphosis, transformation, shared resources. So this really pushes you to strip away from surface level connections and reassess your deepest psyche, your deepest emotions around intimacy and also financial entanglements. It is where you may want to relook at debts. It could be a time where there is a shift with shared finances, especially people that are people that you may be intimate with, and also joint ventures that people that you may be close or intimate with, and also could be a time of inheritance, or it could be a time where you write out a will yourself. But it is generally about other people's resources coming into your own resource to the 2nd house. So this is going to leak into your 2nd house of self-worth and self-valuation and your own finances. So here you may see inheritance and investments, properties, and this is really a house that is ruled by Leo, which means that you are the king and queen of the 8th house. You know, when Leo rules the 8th house, this is where you tend to be bestowed gifts. But also, as a king or queen, you can very much get into debt, and where you've promised what you owe other people. And so here we're talking about in terms of finance. So it is really a time to reevaluate your finances and how these finances are shared or joint with others. And it's not just about financial matters. It's not just about resources in terms of material or money, but it's also resources of other people's energy. So it is a really profound time to reset emotional, financial debts and power dynamics in relationships, which can really lead to personal transformation. Remember, this house is about metamorphosis. It is the phoenix. It is the cocoon to the butterfly. This is where you may experience being one person and then turning into a person that is going to be quite unrecognizable. You're going into the next stage of your life, perhaps. This is where you can kind of imagine a child going from a child to puberty, or from puberty to adult. It could be where you as a young adult could be living with your parents and then moving away with your partner, and then going on to the future of being a couple and making a family. This is a stage of where the cocoon has come to an end, and it's now to spread your butterfly or your moth wings. So here it is quincunxing, so with your rising sign. So here there are matters that are involved in things that need just tying up. There's loose ends that needs to be tied up. There's a sense of waiting because you're expecting something to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And so it needs to be tied up one way or another. You could be expecting something to happen, but it hasn't happened. But instead of something of that not happening, a new thing takes over, which becomes more aligned with your authentic journey and your authentic journey to transformation. So it's a very profound reset time for you. This is a very deep, profound house. It will maybe illuminate deep fears, secrets, things that have been sitting underground. This is the house of the underlord Hades, what lies beneath the ground, what lies in the dark, what lies cryptic and hidden in secret. And so there could be past traumas or patterns, inherited patterns, or fears, or even secrets that may be released and coming up to the surface. So it may not feel that easy, but it will be purging for you. So you have to allow that release and step into that greater personal authority and be courageous and bring in that light, and don't hide away from it and don't run away from it. Allow the light to shine on it for your growth of transformation, an authentic transformation. And so I do hope you enjoy the solar eclipse. Love your Capricorn rising. And now we go on to Virgo rising. Now Virgo rising is literally 30 degrees away from your rising sign. So this is a place where the solar eclipse happening, which is happening in your 12th house, doesn't quite get to see your rising sign because it's facing forward and it kind of looks at the sideline, but it can't really see what's next to it. So it brings a point of some kind of irritation, if you like. It's a bit like having a little pebble in your shoe, but you can't seem to get it out. And so it can feel a little bit irritating. It's activating your 12th house. The 12th house is about introspection. It's a subconscious house. It's the house of spirituality. It is the house where there is closure, the house of surrender. It is ruled by Pisces. It is the compassion for self and also healing. It is the home or the house that rules retreat and to surrender. So this is where releasing limiting beliefs and letting go of burdens that have been hidden or that you've tucked away somewhere, old patterns of behavior, releasing them. And this is really about the spotlight on the 12th house that is asking you to be stepping back from the spotlight, if you understand what I'm saying. So the solar eclipse light is shining on the 12th house saying you need to step back. This is a time to retreat. It's a time to rest and recharge. This is a subconscious reset. It is fully introspective, and it is a period for you to heal. And remember, this is happening for you right up till next year, autumn, at least. And so, with Virgos, we know you're hard workers, you're hard planners, you want everything to be perfect. You're constantly looking and searching and analysing and looking at all the details, and you want to be in control, you want perfectionism, but this is a time to surrender the control. It's time to release yourself away from perfectionism. It really is the time to let go. This is where clarity comes in regarding hidden patterns, unresolved griefs, secrets that may come out that you may find perhaps, that can be quite disturbing perhaps, where you've found out maybe there's been some kind of secrets going on or things going on behind your back, some kind of manipulation behind the scenes, and they all come into light. And behind the scenes dynamics do come to light. And so this is where you need to sit back and you need to be honest and allow yourself to release and not make drama out of things that are being released that you may not feel comfortable to confront, or where it is face to face and you've discovered certain things. It is about forgiving and being compassionate and just releasing and let go. And this is where you will get your hidden talents or private passions and projects that can come to a head, and where you do not reveal these projects to the world. You nurture them with your imagination and in private before you reveal it to the world. And you've got to rest. It is a very important time to just rest and let go. You may be actually feeling quite tired. And so this is where it kind of works on the axis towards the 6th house of health and fitness and your routines. So in order to rest and let go, you may have to relook at your routines, relook at what you need to keep healthy and to keep fit. It is a time of nourishment and retreat, which I know you Virgos find it difficult, but this is what it's asking for you to do. This is the stone in the shoe that you can't quite get out because you're finding this uncomfortable. You're doing what's kind of against your nature. You need to let go of control and enjoy the retreat and the rest and be creative. This is a beautiful time for therapy, meditation, journaling, doing private projects. It doesn't mean you completely close yourself off to the world. It just means to take that button off the control button, take your finger off the control button. And so to, use this time to heal and rest and enjoy, bring joy and passion and creativity into this. This is going to be a reset that's going to allow you to continue the journey towards the more authentic you. So do enjoy. Love you all, Virgos. So that comes to the end of the solar eclipse and rising signs, according to the rising signs and where it takes place in your birth chart. I am Blue Yasmin Boya from ascastrology.com. Do join me next time. I'll be doing in a couple of weeks the lunar eclipse in Pisces, and I'll be going through all the rising signs. So I look forward to you then. Till then, do look after yourself. Happy solar eclipse, everyone.